Now it's becoming very strange. It's peculiar. It's foolish. And Caitlin Clark has officially announced it for the first time. She's heading out. Although the Indiana Fever season is still ongoing, her tenure with the team is over. And the explanation is captured on camera. 1,000 times, it has been replayed. Every American basketball specialist has examined it. Because something that could no longer be concealed was exposed by what transpired during that game against Chicago. Kelsey Mitchell and Stephanie White had teamed up, and the goal of that partnership was to weaken, discredit, and eventually expel the best player in the history of the team.
The fact that Stephanie White refuses to credit Caitlin Clark, especially in front of the team, like she already didn't want to give her no credit for the game winner versus the Washington Mystics when she bailed her out. Now Caitlin Clark bailed you out again, you and Kelsey Mitchell, but for whatever reason, you want to keep trying to credit Kelsey Mitchell at the podium. It's weird. It's odd. It makes no sense.
This was not a coaching choice. Caitlin Clark has had enough of this plot. You must comprehend the pattern of disrespect that had been developing throughout the season in order to comprehend Caitlin Clark's decision to quit. The locker room was where it all began. Following a pivotal win in which freshman Caitlin Clark scored a 30-point double-double, Stephanie White stood in front of the squad and declined to speak at all.
Really good job. Okay, really good job. We weathered the storms. Okay, we came together. Y'all, I heard you more in huddles and in timeouts than I've heard you all year long. That matters. That matters, right? The collective positivity, the collective accountability, talking each other up, that is huge, y'all.
Caitlin Clark was not mentioned at all. Her 30-point performance went unacknowledged. Just cliches about cooperation and teamwork.
The way that we came together going into overtime, coming together and finishing this game. Yes. All right, great job. That we grew today. Yep. We grew today. I'm proud.
Today, we grew. The message is that we weren't saved by Caitlin Clark. We weren't carried by our rookie superstar. Just general compliments for development and unity. However, things worsened. Stephanie White found her voice when she approached the platform for the post-game press conference. She was plenty of things to say. Not about Caitlin Clark, please.
I think I said this when C was drafted here. It's like when you have the bookends, when you have a point guard, and you have a center, that are special. You can build a team around that. And certainly then you add in Kelsey, who had already been here, and she had a quiet 19.
The algorithm, the formula for giving credit to everyone but Caitlin Clark, was there. She mentioned having a center and a point guard as bookends. That's Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark. However, she quickly turned to face Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell scored a low 19. Stephanie White wanted to tell that tale. However, Kelsey Mitchell had almost cost them the match. Kelsey forced a horrible layup try in the last minute, when the Fever was up 5 points. It was a kind of self-centered, needless shot that could have lost them everything. The ball escaped her leg. The lead was reduced to 3. Stephanie White wanted to give her credit for a calm 19 as chaos broke out. However, it wasn't until the latter moments of that game that Caitlin Clark realized the true conspiracy, that Stephanie White and Kelsey Mitchell had conspired against her. Stephanie White came up with a play when the score was deadlocked in overtime and everything was on the line. The goal of the play was to bring the ball to Caitlin Clark. It was a pick and roll, a straightforward strategy that had proven effective throughout the season. But it was altered by Stephanie White. Rather than executing the play as intended, the ball was passed to Caitlin Clark, who was 11 of 11 from the free throw line and the obvious pick. White made the decision to give Kelsey Mitchell the ball via force. Caitlin Clark was aware of it. She was honest. She raised her hands in bewilderment. One thing had been delivered to her, and another had been promised. He told falsehoods too.
She checked in the game as the same play. Same play as last time. I'm going to come off this screen, get 2 free throws. We're going to walk out of this gym, right? Okay, call a timeout. We get the ball at half. They lied to Caitlin Clark. And then Stephanie White has to explain herself after she almost cost them the game.
To Caitlin Clark, they told lies. That's the crucial time. Everything broke at that point. Kelsey Mitchell received the ball. The pass was dropped by Kelsey Mitchell. The asset was squandered. Extended overtime. There was anarchy. It was evident as the camera panned to Caitlin Clark's face. She had lost all hope, all faith in Stephanie White, and all conviction that this coach would support her.
Caitlin Clark, her hands up. What the heck happened? Kelsey Mitchell drops the pass. She knows they messed up. They try to get cute. Why would you do that?
Why would you act in such way? Because a choice had been reached by Kelsey Mitchell and Stephanie White. Caitlin Clark does not receive credit for this decision. The last shot is not given to Caitlin Clark. The hero is not Caitlin Clark. No matter what, Kelsey Mitchell would be included in the story. No matter how badly she performed, how self-centered her choices were, or how nearly she cost them the game. Because Kelsey Mitchell and Stephanie White grasped a basic concept. Caitlin Clark would soon realize she didn't need any of them and depart if she continued to be the only factor in wins, record numbers, and save the business. Thus, even though it was illogical from a basketball standpoint, they plotted to discredit her, downplay her importance, and push Kelsey Mitchell into the limelight. Caitlin Clark observed everything that was happening. She recognized the pattern. She was aware of the plot. Following a 30.7 rebound performance, Stephanie White would not even mention her name in the locker room. Stephanie White changed her mind at the podium and gave credit to Kelsey Mitchell for a game in which Kelsey had forced a horrible shot that almost cost them the game. In the last minutes of overtime, Stephanie White ran the ball to Kelsey Mitchell instead of Caitlin Clark, who was clearly the best option and the player who went 11 of 11 from the free throw line according to basic basketball logic.
Has lost all faith in Stephanie White and her play calling.
Look at it.
She lied to her. She checked in the game. It's the same play. Same play as last time. I'm going to come off this screen, get 2 free throws. We're going to walk out of this gym, right? Okay, call a timeout. We get the ball at half. They lied to Caitlin Clark.
That was the time. Caitlin Clark realized she was done at that point. She finally realized this wasn't about growing her, so she was going as soon as her contract permitted. This had nothing to do with winning titles. This was about a bitter veteran player and an insecure coach who couldn't accept that a 22-year-old rookie was now the team's face.
Clark, look at her face. She's lost all hope, all faith in Stephanie White. She said no. You know the play. Oh my gosh, I can't even believe this. And then it gets worse. Look at the play they drew up. Throw it off the backboard? Come on. Caitlin Clark has no idea what the heck just went on.
This is crazy.
The next play they came up with was even less logical. Remove it from the backboard? Working overtime. With Caitlin Clark standing there disoriented, bewildered, and cut off from the strategy? This was not a game of basketball. It was sabotage. This, however, is what made it much more annoying. Stephanie White's narrative was entirely at odds with the real numbers. Caitlin Clark finished with a double-double of 30 points. 32 points and 7 rebounds, according to some reports. From the free throw line, she was 11 of 11. She was the top scorer. She was the creator and the player. The Fever had a chance to prevail because of her. Kelsey Mitchell scored a quiet 19 points on 7 of 17 attempts. Her self-centered shot in the last minute almost cost them the game. On a night when the league's top player was taking over, she played a supporting role.
It was the Clark Show with Aaliyah Boston. The two-man game as it's supposed to be. As it's supposed to be. The Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston two-man pick-and-roll show, non-stop, unstoppable. What are you talking about, Kelsey?
You don't have to strive to fit Kelsey Mitchell into every situation. However, Stephanie White did it in a pitiful, desperate, and unrelenting manner. Because Stephanie White would have to concede something else if she admitted that Caitlin Clark was the one driving the squad, that Caitlin Clark was the difference, and that Caitlin Clark was the reason they were winning. She had no idea how to mentor a celebrity. She had no idea how to develop exceptional skill. Attempting to keep control over a player who had already outgrown her, she was an insecure coach.
Like, you didn't even mention her 30-point double-double. Didn't even mention it. Kelsey Mitchell was 7 of 17 for 19 points. Bro, she did. If this lady not scoring, she don't do.
It was the Clark show today. That's the truth. Everyone saw that. The offense was run by Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark. They won the game because they made the plays and scored the shots. Stephanie White, however, was unable to acknowledge that. She therefore created a story in which Kelsey Mitchell had a supporting role. Caitlin Clark's overwhelming historic performance was somewhat comparable to Kelsey Mitchell's modest 19 on bad efficiency. Caitlin Clark had made up her mind at the end of that game. As soon as she could, she was heading out of Indiana. She had had enough of Stephanie White. She had had enough of Kelsey Mitchell. She had had enough of an institution that would rather denigrate its best athlete than honor her. It was evident from the numbers. It was evident on the game film. The interviews conducted after the game were lucid. Stephanie White's actions were visible to all. The plot was visible to all. Everyone was aware of the methodical undermining of Caitlin Clark. Most of all, Caitlin Clark understood it as she sat in that locker room and listened to Stephanie White refuse to even say her name.
You don't want to give Caitlin Clark any credit. You don't want to credit her in the locker room. None of that. You didn't mention her 32-point double-double with 7 rebounds. You mentioned none of it. You talked about everything but Caitlin Clark. It's disgusting, bro.
There was silence where there ought to have been recognition for one of the best rookie performances in WNBA history. Not a word, not an acknowledgement. Caitlin Clark learned all she needed to know from that stillness.
You want to try to credit Kelsey Mitchell. You want to try to credit Kelsey Mitchell. You want to get it to the podium after this lady damn near threw the game alongside you being a bonehead, and you want to credit Kelsey Mitchell. You don't want to give Caitlin Clark any credit. You don't want to credit.
It's repulsive. It is exactly that. A head coach who won't give credit to her superstar generation. An experienced teammate who is bitter about her achievements. An organization that prioritizes internal politics above winning titles. That evening, Caitlin Clark affirmed her choice. After all, she would complete the season as a professional. However, she was gone at the end of this season. This is what Kelsey Mitchell and Stephanie White failed to comprehend. They weren't making fun of Caitlin Clark. They were devaluing themselves. The entire world observed what transpired throughout that match. The fans witnessed it. It was reported by the media. It was reported by the media. It was understood by the basketball community. Caitlin Clark's teammate and head coach were often treating her disrespectfully. And she took a decision rather than letting herself be degraded. I'm heading out.